On a quiet Sunday morning in the hill country of Texas, federal agents approached a religious compound with a search warrant. What followed would become a 51-day standoff, watched live by the entire nation, and end in one of the deadliest law enforcement operations in American history. How did a raid meant to last minutes turn into nearly 2 months of gunfire, negotiation, and fire? This is the story of Waco. In February 1993, the world had never heard of Mount Carmel Center. By April, its name was known everywhere. This was the home of the Branch Davidians, a religious sect led by a man named David Koresh. What started as a federal investigation into weapons violations escalated into a siege that captivated television audiences for weeks and ended in a fire that claimed dozens of lives, including many children. This is a story about faith, authority, miscommunication, and the tragic cost when both sides refused to back down. Mount Carmel Center sat roughly 9 miles outside Waco, Texas, a sprawling, self-built compound of wooden structures, dormitories, and a central chapel. The land had belonged to the Branch Davidian since the 1930s, a splinter group that emerged from the Seventh-day Adventist Church. By the early 1990s, it was home to around 130 men, women, and children who lived communally, worked the land, and studied scripture under their leaders' teachings. To outsiders, it was isolated and secretive. To those inside, it was simply home. David Koresh, born Vernon Wayne Howell, became the group's leader in the late 1980s after a period of internal power struggles. He presented himself as a prophetic figure with a divine mission, and under his leadership, the group stockpiled firearms. Legally, in many cases, as some members were licensed gun dealers. Federal investigators, however, grew concerned that the group was illegally converting semi-automatic weapons into fully automatic ones. On the other side stood the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco and Firearms, the ATF, tasked with enforcing federal weapons law, and later the FBI, which would take command once the standoff began. Throughout 1992, the ATF received tips suggesting the Branch Davidians were illegally stockpiling and modifying weapons. Investigators began building a case, eventually securing a search warrant for the property and an arrest warrant for Koresh on federal firearms charges. Local delivery drivers had reportedly noticed suspicious shipments. Neighbors described hearing gunfire from the property during target practice. To federal agents, the pieces were forming a picture of a group preparing for armed conflict. To the Davidians, they were simply exercising their right to bear arms. On the morning of February 28, 1993, roughly 76 ATF agents approached Mount Carmel to execute the search and arrest warrants. But secrecy, so critical to the plan, had already been compromised. A local newspaper reporter and a cameraman were near the property that morning, and evidence later suggested Koresh had been tipped off shortly before agents arrived. As agents moved toward the compound, the element of surprise, the operation's entire foundation, was gone. As agents approached the front of the compound, gunfire broke out. To this day, investigators, survivors, and historians disagree on who fired first. What is certain is the outcome. A fierce firefight erupted, lasting nearly 2 hours. 4 ATF agents were killed, and at least 5 Branch Davidians died, with Koresh himself wounded. The raid, intended to be swift and controlled, had become a deadly battle in broad daylight, and the eyes of the nation were about to turn toward Mount Carmel. By the afternoon of February 28th, the ATF called for a ceasefire, and the FBI took command of what would become a 51-day siege. Hundreds of federal agents, along with armored vehicles and negotiators, surrounded Mount Carmel. Inside, Koresh and his followers remained with dozens of children. Negotiators opened a phone line, hoping to talk the group into surrendering peacefully. In the early days, there was cautious optimism. A handful of children and some adults were released. But as the days turned into weeks, that optimism began to fade. For weeks, FBI negotiators spoke with Koresh by phone, while tactical teams outside used psychological pressure tactics. Floodlights at night, loud music, and recorded sounds blasted toward the compound in an effort to disrupt sleep and force a surrender. Koresh, for his part, gave lengthy religious sermons over the phone, promising to come out once he had finished a theological message he said he was writing. Negotiators grew frustrated as deadlines came and went. Trust between the two sides eroded further with each passing day. By early April, the standoff had become the longest siege in modern U.S. law enforcement history. Attorney General Janet Reno, newly appointed, faced mounting pressure to bring the situation to a close. She was told, based on intelligence at the time, that children inside were being abused and that conditions were deteriorating. On April 19th, after 51 days, the FBI decided to act. Armored vehicles began inserting tear gas into the buildings, intending to force everyone out without gunfire. It did not go as planned. As tear gas filled the compound, fires broke out in multiple locations within the structure. Firefighters and emergency crews, staged some distance away for safety amid ongoing concerns about gunfire, moved in as quickly as conditions allowed. But high winds and the wooden construction of the buildings caused the flames to spread with devastating speed. In total, 76 Branch Davidians died that day, including more than 20 children. 9 members escaped the fire and survived. The exact cause of the fire remains debated to this day. Government investigators concluded Davidians started it deliberately, while survivors and some independent reviewers have disputed that conclusion. In the days and weeks following the fire, multiple investigations were launched. The Department of Justice, Congress, and independent experts all examined what went wrong. From the initial decision to raid the compound, to the tactics used during the siege, to the final decision to insert tear gas. Attorney General Janet Reno publicly took responsibility for approving the final operation. Meanwhile, surviving Branch Davidians faced federal charges, and a trial began that would examine not just their actions, but the actions of the government itself. Investigators later determined that gas mass and fuel accelerant patterns found in the rubble supported the theory that fires were set intentionally from within the compound in at least 3 locations. Audio surveillance recordings later reviewed appeared to capture members discussing spreading fuel shortly before the fire began. Critics of the government's handling of the siege, however, pointed to the tear gas operation itself as reckless, given the presence of children, and questioned whether a peaceful resolution had truly been exhausted. Both perspectives remain part of the historical record, a reminder of how contested this tragedy still is. The Waco Siege became a flashpoint in American political history. It fueled deep distrust of federal law enforcement among certain groups and became a rallying point referenced by extremists in the years that followed, including in connection with the 1995 Oklahoma City bombing, which occurred exactly 2 years later on the anniversary of the fire. For federal agencies, Waco forced a painful reckoning. The FBI and ATF both revised protocols for hostage negotiation, tactical operations, and handling situations involving children and religious groups. The word Waco itself became shorthand, a symbol invoked in debates about government overreach for decades to come. Waco remains a case study in how miscommunication, mistrust, and rigid tactical thinking can turn a law enforcement action into tragedy. Experts in crisis negotiation still study the siege to understand what could have been done differently, whether a slower, more patient approach might have saved lives. It also raised enduring questions about religious freedom, the limits of government power, and how authorities should handle standoffs involving children. Was there a moment when this tragedy could still have been prevented? Historians continue to debate the answer. Today, a small chapel and a memorial stand where Mount Carmel once did, maintained by survivors and family members who still return each year to honor those who died. The Waco Siege endures not just as a historical event, but as a mirror, reflecting hard questions about faith, authority, and how far each side is willing to go before compromise becomes impossible. More than 3 decades later, the fire at Mount Carmel still burns in American memory, a reminder of what can happen when dialogue breaks down entirely. If this story moved you, subscribe for more documentary-style investigations into the events that shaped history, and share this video with someone who needs to understand why Waco still matters today.